Is the government helping you buy a home or quietly becoming your landlord?
So with just 2% deposit needed, the new Help to Buy scheme sounds amazing, but is there really a catch?
So they are an equity owner of your house. If it's a new build, they can contribute up to 40% of the value. If it's an existing, it's 30%.
It's almost like an investment vehicle for the government
It is.
by using other people's serviceability. Yes, you're building an $800,000 property and that will continue to grow, but really you only own $464,000.
Is the government helping you buy a home or quietly becoming your landlord?
Yeah, so with just 2% deposit needed, the new Help to Buy scheme sounds amazing, but is there really a catch?
Today we're going to break down how it works, who is it for, and whether you can end up basically giving away your capital growth.
So Brad, it's probably best coming from you, given the fact that you're on the finance side. What is the Help to Buy scheme?
So the Help to Buy scheme was a Labor initiative that was brought out, proposed about 3 years ago now, as part of the 2022 election. So basically what it is, similar to the first home loan deposit scheme where it's a small deposit, no lender's mortgage insurance required at all. But what happens is the government actually contributes towards the purchase. So they are an equity owner of your house. So if it's a new build, they can contribute up to 40% of the value. If it's an existing, it's 30%. So basically, the loan amount is a lot smaller. So you are getting a house or whatever it is that is worth a lot more, but the government is owning a portion of that.
Fractional ownership of your property, isn't it?
Correct. So different to the first home loan deposit scheme where the government is actually just guaranteeing. It's like mum and dad being a guarantee to your loan. The government is a guarantee. In this scheme, they're actually owning a portion of your house. So what we're going to unpack today is what that actually means and when you actually have to pay that back as well.
Yeah, because the difference between a guarantor loan is it might go guarantor against another security, but your parents typically don't become owners of your property like the government will.
Correct. And when you pay back a guarantor loan, you don't have to pay it at the current value, which we're going to talk about today as well.
Yeah.
So firstly, we'll get into, who's eligible.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to be 18 plus. You can't be a child to do this. There is income caps. So currently it sits at $100,000 for a single and $160,000 for a couple. So this is targeted at the lower end of the scale.
And it is, first home buyers, lower end of the scale, but also trying to push new homes because they're contributing up to 40%
For a new home.
for a new home.
And it does keep that loan nice and low.
Yeah.
You must not currently own property. So I can't find anywhere that says that you can't have previously owned property.
Okay.
So this scheme seems to be eligible for anyone that doesn't currently own a property.
Use their terminology.
Correct. So it's a 2% deposit as well.
Okay.
So you need to have that as genuine savings. So held in an account for more than 3 months.
Is pretty reasonable.
2%, not much at all. We're actually going to run through a bit of a case study towards the end of this podcast as well in real terms. So you must live in the house. Now I'm going to talk about that later on in a podcast as well. What happens if you move out and rent it out? So, and you also must qualify for the home loan for your share. So either the 70% or
60%.
Yep. Yeah. So either the 58% or the 7.
So the lending requirements in terms of serviceability, they still assess it as if you're buying whatever the value is up to that rate that you're financing.
And your LVR is 70% or 68%.
Yeah.
So you only need to be able to service for your portion, not for the entire portion.
And the LMI is waived based on your 2% deposit
because the LVR is 60% or 70%.
Okay.
So you have to cover all other costs. The government's not chipping in for stamp duty, legals, any of that. So you need your 2% plus conveyancer costs, pest and building, any of those other things.
It still does get pretty expensive.
It can be, yeah. Generally speaking, you're going to need another sort of 2% plus maybe $5,000.
Yeah.
Just to be safe. So updated property price caps as per 2025 from Labor is in New South Wales, including Sydney and regional capitals, is 1.3 price cap. So this is the maximum you're allowed to buy, or the maximum value of the house you're going to buy.
Which is, that's needed because property prices are increasing, and if these values aren't increasing, well, it just pushes people out or keeps people out. But again, 1.3 million, it's still it's still in that territory of, a lot of people are buying in Sydney, and unless you're buying in Western Sydney, it doesn't really get you much.
What doesn't really match up with this for me is a single person on $100,000. Their maximum loan amount currently, as of today, sits at around $500,000.
Yeah.
So the math doesn't math. You know what I mean?
That's
how are you ever going to achieve that at $160,000 for a couple, possibly?
If you're going up to that 60% ownership with a new build, you'll get up to that 1.3 potentially, but
correct.
It's definitely not mathing.
No. So in Victoria, 950, Queensland, $1 million, ACT, $1 million, South Australia, 900, Western Australia, 850, Tasmania, 700, which is quite high for Tasmania, to be honest. Northern Territory is 600.
I'm not too sure why they didn't do different price caps for different areas, because it's...
Well, that's what we saw under the first home loan deposit scheme was Sydney and major regional capitals had a certain amount, and then regional New South Wales had a much lower amount.
Makes a lot more sense.
So that is a little bit confusing. But what we're going to break down now is a bit of a real world sort of situation.
Yeah.
So it's someone wanting to buy in Newcastle for an $800,000 build. So purchase and build in Newcastle. So that 2% of that is $16,000.
Mm-hmm.
Government's going to throw in 40% or $320,000 in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you need to borrow $464,000.
Which you can do on that $100,000 salary as a single person.
Correct. Yep. So there's much lower repayments than if you did this under the first home loan deposit scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also no lender's mortgage insurance.
Yeah.
So that looks like a good idea.
I mean, it does help you get into the market, but just try and put this into perspective. Yes, you're building an $800,000 property and that will continue to grow, but really you only own $464,000.
Which is the next part.
Yeah.
So if you were to sell a year later for $1 million, then 40% of that is $400,000. So the government's made $80,000 in a year.
Yeah. So it's almost like an investment vehicle for the government.
It is.
By using other people's serviceability.
Correct. So they've it's absolutely zero risk for them.
Yeah.
So realistically, they've made a sneaky little 80K there on the back of your effort. So that's something that you really need to weigh up. Do you really want to lose that $80,000? Should you be buying at something that you can afford at a lower amount and keep that 40% equity for yourself?
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Biggest things that concern me with this scheme is when you need to pay it back.
Yeah. Obviously, when you sell the home, that's going to be the most obvious one.
If you refinance.
So
that is being left very vague.
Yeah.
So when you originally go through, and I've seen this previously with other schemes, you buy under the first home loan deposit scheme, the lender knows that you're kind of cornered with your LVR.
Yeah.
So the rate slowly goes up.
Yeah.
So what they do is they start reducing your discount.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that this would happen as well.
Yeah.
Where lenders know they're not dumb. If they can squeeze an extra dollar out of you, they're going to find a way to do it.
Yeah.
I see that this will be one of the ways. So you refinance out, you have to pay back the entire 40% or 30% in this case.
In this case, so if you do end up making, increasing your income, which we'll get to in a minute, if you increase your income, you have the capacity to buy an investment property, you go to refinance to do so, you have to pay back them first.
Correct.
So I would say that the best way to go about that is if you do have an income increase or you have the capacity to service more debt or the rates become cheaper, just refinance and pay the government back.
I'd be paying them back as quickly as you can.
Take full ownership of the property.
Yeah. Don't wait 2 years, 3 years if you don't have to.
Yeah, for sure.
Pay it back as soon as you can. Because as we've discussed, you're adding to their...
Yeah.
So they're getting the capital growth advantage
for sure.
as well as you. So refinancing, you'll lose the benefit. You'll have to pay the whole thing back. If you move out, so this is another one as well, where a lot of first home buyers like I always promote people, it's your first home, not your last home.
Yeah.
Go buy that piece of shit, live in it
Yeah.
for your 12 months, renovate it, do it up. Then you can move out and rent it out.
That's,
in this case, you can't.
it's almost it's almost becoming like a prison because it's an ownership of your house. You have to pay them back if you have the ability to refinance. If you want to move out, but your property values decrease because you've purchased potentially in 2022, the market contracted by 5%. Now the value of your home is decreased and there's less buyers in the market. You've had to move out of your home because of financial hardship or something like that, or a job opportunity's come up elsewhere.
All of a sudden, you've got to pay it back.
All of a sudden, the government takes their cut and you're left with the bill.
Yeah. So I understand all of this is going to be processed through the ATO as well. There's going to be triggers that are going to trigger. So if you start claiming income for that property, it's going to trigger something. If your income exceeds the eligibility limit, so we've talked about that, the 100,000 and 160 for a couple. If you exceed that for 2 years in a row, my understanding is that you need to pay back the government shares. But there is talk that it can be done in chunks, or they're calling it staircasing.
5% chunks.
5%, 5%, 5%.
Yeah. Which, again, it would be nice to know what that chunking is like and when it's payable. Is it like a reoccurring, weekly, monthly payment, or do you just get a bill of 5%? What's the detail with that?
And you can pay this back at any time voluntarily as well. Okay. So you don't have to wait for a trigger to do it.
Yeah.
As you said, if you got a gift from your parents or something, your position improved dramatically, you can make an additional payment. You might pay off 5% because you've got 5% sitting there. And that reduces their equity.
I would almost save up as much as you can in an offset account if that's how the loan's structured. Get as much as you can possibly in that offset account, and when you have enough to pay them back,
sweep it out.
See you later.
So overall, there is some good sides and some downsides. Obviously, the pros of it, you get into the market much sooner. You do need, it's only 2%.
Yeah.
You could literally buy an $800,000 property with $16,000 plus.
We've thrown a lot of it under the bus, but it does get people in the market.
Get you in the market. And someone commented on one of our posts the other day that I'd prefer own 60% of a house than zero.
For sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So you get in the market sooner, really low deposit, literally 2% deposit, which is mental.
Yeah.
It's a smaller loan because the government's doing the other. You don't pay any repayments or interest on the other portion as well.
Yeah.
There's no lender's mortgage insurance. And slowly you will get full ownership.
And the thing is, it's almost like you have full ownership in terms of living in your own property, because if you lease a property or because you own the property, you're not subject to the owner wanting to move in or tenants changing, or you can't put a picture on the wall because the landlord won't let you.
I have had a look further into that as well. So the definition is you're able to freely use the house as you would if you owned 100% of it. So if you want to,
until Albo wants to come over for a beer.
If you want to put a meth lab in there, go for it.
Yeah.
But the basics of it are you don't need permission to knock a wall down. You don't need permission to do X, Y, Z. But structural renovations, you do need permission from your bank.
For sure.
Which would then trigger a refinance, and then it triggers removal of this loan anyway. For sure. So basically,
buy it and just sit on it.
Yeah.
Don't do anything.
So I actually like this this strategy or this scheme, for new builds.
Yeah.
Because you are generating quite a lot of equity in that first couple of years with a new build.
Yeah.
So you buy the land, you build the house, do some landscaping, driveways, all those things. Generally speaking, there could be 20%, 30% increase in that first couple of years anyway.
Yeah.
Just because you've built it.
Yeah.
Could work well in those situations.
It's one of those things. It's incentivizing supply, and we need supply. So
downsides, obviously the government owns a share of your capital gains.
Yeah. Your
income could trigger a repayment. So that's one thing that is sort of hang over your head a bit, I think, is if I do this, it's going to trigger that.
Yeah.
Restricted on use, so you can't rent out that property ever under that scheme.
You can't rent out a room. You can't rent out a granny flat. You can't.
It's for owner-occupied purposes only. You cannot generate any revenue or income from that property.
Unless it's paid in cash.
Yeah, well, ATO auditors listening. But there's only 10,000 spots per year too.
Okay.
So not a huge amount. When the first home loan deposit scheme first came out in, I can't remember, it would have been 2020 maybe. The 10th, they started on 10,000 spots. They were gone in a month, the first lot.
I mean, it's almost an opportunity for a private business as well.
Yeah.
Whoever has the capital to go and secure 10,000 fractional ownership shares of people's properties.
It's not a bad idea. Be good business owner. You think about 10,000. We talked, sold in a year with 80,000. So 10,000 times 80,000.
Yeah.
Not bad little income generator for the government. So it could also complicate any future refinancing or renovation requirements for that place.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, this is ideal for someone with low incomes. It has to be. You can't be more than 100K or 160 as a combined. It's not suitable for people that want to buy something and renovate it. Yeah. So you can't really do that because you need to pay back that portion straight away. Then you've got 2% equity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
that's almost causes other problems because there's so many older properties that are out there on the market. And they're typically cheap because no one wants them.
Yeah.
A lot of people like completed homes, and it'd be great if first home buyers could buy those rundown cheaper properties and try and manufacture some equity through that, just a small cosmetic renovation. A lot of first home buyers are willing to do it because it's time well spent.
The only way you do it was just in cash. You just can't. You just can't refinance.
Yeah.
So this isn't for people. This scheme isn't for people that want to rent that property out.
Yeah.
Which I said is quite a common strategy. Buy the house, get all those first home buyer benefits, move out, rent it out. This isn't suitable for that. And I think biggest advice for anyone wanting to go under this scheme, I think that there will be a bit of demand for it. So if you are looking to do it, reach out to us or send me a message. I can run some numbers for you, figure out which scheme is going to be best for you.
Yeah.
It might be this, it might be the first home loan deposit scheme. And just a bit of a disclaimer, Labor has been saying they're going to roll this out for 3 years.
Yeah. So once it's like 10,000 spots will go super quick.
And here we are 3 years later,
and
they still haven't got a start date.
Yeah.
I think they're saying now it could be August, might not be.
Yeah.
But that's it for today. As I said, if you do have any questions or you want a bit more tailored advice to your position, reach out and I'm happy to do so.
Yeah. See you on the next episode.
Thank you.